We've got a very interesting personality today, who is Alessandro Ferullo. And he's an Italian kid who grew up in Sardinia, traveled across the world in Denmark, Turkey, Czech Republic, and finally settled down in the UK in Wimbledon, which is famous for tennis matches and so on. So he is got a rich history of being a Qigong practitioner for the last 35 years. He's had a 25-year corporate stint as an HR recruitment director and so on. So he mixes Eastern and Western wisdom for holistic solutions and helps people, cope with modern life, this stress and strain of living, which is all the more on the increase now because of COVID and the pandemic, where mobility is hugely restricted and so on. So I think we generally have tech leaders who talk about stuff, but here is a wellness guru, Alessandro Ferullo, who's going to walk us through his rich experience on how you can keep yourself fit. And of course, a fit body and mind will enable good corporate turnaround and transformation. So only when employees are fit and well can you really produce remarkable business results. So at the bottom of it all is like, how do you keep your sanity intact without selling your soul? And then how do you, of course, balance your energies when all of us are increasingly isolated due to the pandemic and so on. So we're here to talk about all of this to Alessandro. Good morning, Alessandro, in Wimbledon. I hope I can see a bright day out there from your window corner. Please walk us through your journey on why did you chance upon this mode of alternative practice or healing, which is an ancient Chinese art. You could have perhaps taken to yoga or pilates or any other form of energy medicine and healing. So what really brought you to this, and what made you chuck your corporate career and involve headlong into healing and Qigong as such? So please walk us through that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And lovely to be here, Kiran. And I have a special place in my heart for India, because I've spent a bit of time there when I used to work in the corporate world buying silk around the world. So I was going around the villages near Bangalore to check the silk and the quality of the silk, and sometimes why wasn't it delivered because there was a wedding that lasted 2 weeks and things like that. So it was a whole new world. But I love India, and as you said earlier, being Italian, like the family is important, and spirituality and all these things. But going back to the Qigong aspect, I was working in a publishing company at the time. I never heard of Qigong, but somebody mentioned this weekend with this Chinese teacher in London, and I ended up in this church hall in North London and doing this practice called Qigong. Never heard of it, like I said. But I could feel after a while something between my hands, a kind of subtle energy, which is hard to describe unless you feel it. But then it awoke something in me, and I realized, I had a job, I had my car, I had a home, I kind of had a material life, but I was kind of searching for something without knowing it. When I sensed this energy, I thought, this is it. This is going to lead me to something, and I started practicing with my teacher. It's now 35 years later, a very specific style of Qigong called Huagong, which is a self-healing form, very simple. But within the Qigong, what I found is there are so many aspects to health and energy. But the true kind of practice of Qigong is to become, there's a nice Chinese term called Zheng Ren, which means to become a true human being. In other words, to become yourself. And I think for me, it was a recognition that I was getting more in touch with myself on a deeper level. And, of course, I knew about yoga. I've also studied yoga. I know about Reiki, Tai Chi, many other practices. But the
Reiki is something that I'm also aware of. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
I mean, Reiki is kind of like a modern version of Qigong. It's only a couple of 100 years old, I think.
Yeah, Qigong Japanese, probably Japanese in origin, I think.
Japanese. Qigong is probably the other day I posted something on LinkedIn. I said over 1,000 years old, and somebody corrected me saying 4,000. So, okay, it's thousands of years old, let's call it. But what it is, Qi is energy, Gong is practice. In a way, yoga is a form of Qigong. In a way, Pilates is a form of Qigong. Anything that practices energy is kind of energy practice. But Qigong itself is, I would say, the most important thing. It cultivates the energy in the body, of course, but brings the mind in, and the whole system, if you like, is addressed. And the most important thing, I think, is this connection with the energy beyond our own energy system. What brought us into this world? You know, what you know, where are we going after life? Where did we come from? And in Qigong tradition, they talk about this Qi energy that gives the nature life, gives us life. It's a vital force, and it doesn't contradict anything that, for example, yoga, Tai Chi, anything says. That's why I love studying other systems. I love following Deepak Chopra. I love, you know, Rumi, you know, all these things I read or practice all fit into. So it's almost like Qigong is like a container. We are energy beings. We come from energy. We'll go back there. Nobody can deny that. People can argue that, you know, there is reincarnation. There isn't. But actually, one thing they can't argue with, that once our energy is gone, we are gone, you know, because we could eat, breathe, and, you know, drink, but we can't live forever with those three things. But what keeps us alive is the Qi. When that's taken away, we are gone. So that's what inspires me to cultivate this energy, to share it with others, and has great healing benefits. I know today we're going to talk more about maybe kind of how to bring it into the corporate and the office with a lot of sitting we're doing these days. And this is such a challenging time. So I'm very grateful and honored to be able to share anything I can here.
Thanks, Alessandro. So, yeah, as you rightly said, I think all of us in the IT world end up sitting for very, very long hours. And as it said, sitting is the new smoking of this generation. So it's the next big thing that's going to kill a lot of people. It's not going to be diabetes or cancer or one of them. It's going to be sitting, is what they say. More than 8 hours of sitting is what 90% of the population anywhere in the world does today. And it's really detrimental to, you know, well-being, and like, because we are surrounded by gadgets, and all of these things have a lot of Bluetooth radiation. We're surrounded by so much of radiation that, as you said, we cannot maintain our Qi all by ourselves. So what is what is the daily practice that we could incorporate to maintain our energy balance so that we don't go topsy-turvy? Because we're pushed into the market, we need to negotiate with people, we need to get stuff done, we need to keep our sanity. So it's a marketplace out there, but in that chaos, so we need to find our own sweet spot, which is soft and endearing and caring. So how do you do that actually? I did chance upon your videos, and I really loved your way of increasing your appetite, increasing your digestion stuff. It's very subtle. But unless you don't really know it, it looks like a gimmick that what are we trying to do? But just by moving our hands on the outer part of the body, how can we control the energy out there? And I could completely relate when you said in the hands, you were first drawn to this practice because when you just kept your hands here and there's a ball of light that is jumping across between your fingers. And I also did learn from my Reiki master that you can measure a person's aura by doing this scanning kind of a thing, and how big is a person's aura and all that sort of stuff. So I think Alessandro, it'll be great if you can tell us how we could avoid the repetitive strain injuries due to sitting, which I think everybody out here is now faced with. So what should be the posture? What kind of exercises to do? And I think we'll take one step at a time. Please go ahead.
There's so much to share on this, but we'll go through some basics. But shall we just do this sitting down since we are sitting?
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah. So I think one of the main principles is energy needs to flow. Actually, my company is called Flowing Health, which I named it 25 years ago. But I wasn't sure why I named it that at the time. But now I realize energy needs to flow always. If you have a stagnant pond of water, what happens, everything dies in it, the fish, there's no oxygen. So same with the body, the energy needs to continually be moving and flowing. So if we're sitting a lot, I think one of the first things is take a break every so often, maybe every hour or so. And in that break, I'll show a few things we can do right now. So if we are sitting normally, we're working, we're getting a bit tense, I think shaking the hands, because fingers are often used obviously on the keyboard, on the computer, and all the fingers relate to the internal organs. In acupuncture, they relate to the senses also. So if we keep the fingers flexible and soft, just shake off and shake the arms. I'm sitting, so we could just shake the arms off. Of course, you can do this standing up as well, but for now, let's just sit. So we're releasing any tension that's building up. Things like RSI, you mentioned often, is just something stuck somewhere in the joints. So here we're releasing from the joints and shaking off. And the fingers together like this is a very good one to do. And then clear the space between the fingers. Like this space is the space also in the body between the internal organs. And shake off and just feel a bit freer, like freeze up the body a little bit and the mind. And actually, if I hold my hands like this, the knuckles relate to the spine here, the vertebrae. So even the knuckles can squeeze, like soften up the knuckles will help the spine also. It's almost like infusing warmth, energy into the knuckles. If we have like problems like arthritis, those kind of things, it's an indicator something at the back. If it's here, it's also probably in the body. So always good to keep the fingers flexible and loose every so often. And then sitting, let's go on to sitting. So many people, when they sit, firstly, one of the worst things one can do is sit on a sofa with a laptop on your lap. Okay, even though it's called laptop, it should never really be on our body. And especially, women, the men, with the organs down here, it can affect, and actually there are things on YouTube and interesting photos of people who have their mobile phones in their pockets, for example, and how it actually kills, the eggs in women and the sperm in men. You can actually see them dying from the radiation. So one thing is to keep it away off the body firstly. So ideally, if you have a laptop, put it on a table, on a desk, off the body. That's one thing. Secondly is when we sit, not to be collapsed when we sit with the spine, because then the energy is loose and leaking off the body. So ideally, if you're sitting on a chair, as I'm doing right now, but even on a sofa or on a stool, sit towards the front of the chair. Towards the front of the chair means that the hips are on the front, the feet flat on the earth, not to cross the legs or do funny things with the legs, just feet onto the earth. And that way we're connecting with the earth. Also, we can be absorbing energy from the earth, but main thing is the spine. So as we sit, you can just sense the tailbone, the base of the spine. You move it a little bit, like wiggle a little bit, then you feel the spine releasing upwards. It's like the head wants to float up. So often in yoga, they talk about kundalini. It's like the energy wants to go up the spine, but often spine tends to be a bit collapsed when we sit. So this is quite good. Just remind ourselves, loosen up the spine, extend upwards and downwards a bit. That's quite a good practice to do. So every so often, wiggle the hips and, just loosen up the body, hands and fingers. So that's, posture and hands and fingers. And at least my hands now feel quite warm. Before they were cold. Now I did that shaking, it's clearing out. And a lot of energy can be stuck in the joints, especially if we use the mouse and things like that. So the wrists, this is quite hard to do right now, but we do Qigong to also release energy stuck in the wrists. So one of the practices, we call it the 5 animals, which is the bear practice. So we imagine we're one of the 5 animals and the wrists are like the paws of the bear and we collapse them like this. Close, open, close, open. So this is good for close opening the wrist, which we use too much on computer, mobile phones. So that's something on posture and something on the fingers, and then something for the neck. Can we do something for the neck as well?
Definitely, definitely. Actually, my brother is a huge complainer of neck problems, and I myself could see that it doesn't work if I take the laptop on my lap and work it. I just have to keep it at eye level, and then I am okay. If I don't do that, I mean, I can't sit for more than an half an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think neck is a huge, huge area. Yes, Alessandro,
But,
please go ahead.
but people do sit without realizing. And then what's going to happen after a number of years? I mean, the Chinese have a word, they call it office neck, you know, when it collapses a little bit like this because we're looking down or we're getting like this. And then I read there's a newer term called text neck, you know, young people especially texting, you know, so the neck and energy comes up the spine. So if the neck is collapsed, the energy is not flowing to the brain, to the head. And that's like, you know, mental focus and, you know, the mind, you know, can't function fully because of course, energetically, it's cut off a bit. So we'll do something for the neck.
No, actually, just before you get onto that, Alessandro, I just want to tell you that I know people who've actually suffered spondylitis of the neck because of texting, and they've gone from a normal smartphone to a functional phone. So that because they're so addicted to putting their neck down and texting and messaging, so they've gone back to the functional phone vision. They just use a phone for calling. That's it, nothing more than that. So yeah,
is, you know, like we say, take breaks. We all do it, but take breaks and then do some work on the body. You know, I think it's good to change the kind of functionality in what we work with. How about working with the body? That's the key, really, isn't it? You know, so when we know stiff, a very good one is if we put the fingers together like this, and just do some tapping on the back of the neck, and just quite delicately, because the neck is quite delicate. But this goes quite deep into the back of the neck. You can feel the neck quite sensitive. Can you notice? Or back of the shoulders?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a very good one, the fingers together. And if you do it on the shoulder, you can do it harder on the shoulder. Just notice this area often is quite stiff. And because this supports the neck, the shoulders, also good to tap on the shoulders, even on the arms, because the arms and the shoulders support the neck. So the areas around the neck to strengthen like this. And here you can go harder. The neck, a bit more delicate, so you just do it like this. But one of the main things for the neck, I think, very effective is the right hand. You close the fingers and put the back of the hand on the neck, the right hand, the back of the hand, that's it. Then turn the hand so the palm is holding the neck. Feel the neck quite smooth. It's like you're supporting the neck. Often the neck is a bit creased or collapsed. With the hand here, you can just stretch a little bit. Just feel the smoothness there. Then you close the left hand, close the fingers, put them on the right. And then you can lean back a bit. Just feel the neck supported. The neck often is quite delicate. And if it's collapsed, energy is not flowing. But we try and force it, or chiropractor does something, you know, to crack it. That's not the point. The point is get the energy coming through. So smooth the neck like this. And then from the back of the neck, you can just push up a bit. It's like clearing any stuck energy. And then you can do 2 more times. Fingers closed, right hand first, left hand on top, and just lean back and stretch, open. And as you open the neck, just feel you can re-step a bit because the energy reaches the feet also. When the neck is open, whole body feels like woken up a bit. It's not just that area. You know, one area affects everything, then pushing up. So I would say this one 3 times, right hand first, left hand on top, feel the support of the neck, pushing up. So that's good for posture, neck, strengthening, getting the energy through. And then there's a few things we can do for the head, clearing the head. And I think you mentioned something about, maybe, I can't remember if you mentioned about emotions, about how to deal with the situations. We can do
how to deal with office stress and difficult people, a tough boss and stuff like that.
Yeah. So look, that's not easy. You know, I think I've had terrible bosses in my in my life. And actually, I remember the best job I ever got in textiles. I was being interviewed. I was in London. I had to go to New York for an interview, and the managing director was interviewing me with the managing director of New York. And it was lunchtime. It was a 3-hour interview. And all the time I was doing my Qigong under the table. I had my hands on my lower abdomen area, and I was just breathing where my hands were. You know, this is our main energy center in yoga, in all spiritual practice.
The belly button area, the belly button.
Yeah, just below the belly. So I was just breathing there. I was so kind of detached and relaxed. And I thought, there's no way I've got this job. You know, I'm too detached. And I did get the job, and I got, you know, like the highest salary that I went for. So it was a very interesting exercise. And I think one of the things with stress and all these things, and I think Deepak Chopra talks a lot about this, it's not, you know, what happens to us, it's how we react to it. So we all get stressed. We all are human beings. Everybody has issues, you know, at home, they bring them to work. So I'd say one of the main things is the breathing is one of the few things we can control in our body. You know, we can't easily control the heartbeat. We can't control, you know, the liver. We can control our breathing, and the breathing is a massive help to calm the mind, calm the emotions. And a very simple practice, you know, is, I mean, if you put your hands here, it looks a bit obvious. If you're sitting with somebody and your hands are here, they think, what's he doing? You know, they might, so a simpler way is, we call it in Qigong a pulse breathing or body breathing, where you just imagine, just switch the breathing from actively thinking about breathing, or when we get, you know, tense or stressed, we breathe a bit more shallow up here. So we call it body breathing. Imagine every cell in the body is breathing. Every cell is exchanging breath with the universe, because actually the truth is, we are being kept alive by this, by God, by this universal energy, whatever we call it. That's the truth of it. You know, we are kept alive. So why not give it over for a while? We feel stressed. Just think every cell is breathing. Every hair on the head is breathing. The whole body is being breathed. Then you go into a kind of deeper state, and then you can reflect and think, do I need to react to what's just happened? Or can I just go into this deep state and react from a relaxed place? Or do I need to react anyway? You know, often, you know, when we argue or we get into, you know, people these days, crazy what they argue, you know, religion and politics, maybe the two biggest things they argue about. Often no point arguing, you know, everybody has their point of view. You know, I love this expression. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? I have people just argue until the cows come home, you know, and it's like, if I stop, they can't argue by themselves, can they? So this, just as we're talking, you can do this as well. Just think, every cell is breathing. What's happening? Internal organs relaxing. Internal organs relate to the emotions. You know, the heart is joy, the liver is anger, depression. So in Qigong, even the breathing is helping keep the internal organs healthier, helping relax the emotions, and the mind definitely settles. When the mind is settled, it's more inspired. You know, we don't want to get into this whole stuff that's going on, even in the world at the moment. I mean, I'm sure we all get stuff on our phones about, you know, who's right, who's wrong, governments controlling us, you know, conspiracy theory, you know, what's it called? 5G, you know, causing COVID. It's not a virus, it's 5G. There's so much, nobody can actually prove anything, but we can really get caught up in it. And when you get caught up, so just go into a deeper state. And I would say this is good every day anyway, go into some stillness, whether we're at work or not, and just allow the energy to settle. In Qigong terms, the earth is the heavy element, is the yin. Heaven is the yang. So if you settle all the energy down, with breathing, with practice.
Alessandro, sorry to interrupt you. Does this work if you are actually wearing shoes or footwear? I mean, still does the earth absorb the energy, or
Yeah, no,
it
it's
doesn't?
fine. Fine.
Okay.
You just,
Okay.
the mind is so powerful. You just sense that the feet rooted into the earth through the shoes, through the soil, through the, even if you're in an apartment. I do this often on an aeroplane, which isn't so frequent now.
True.
On an aeroplane, and I take off and land, I do a Qigong practice to keep the to avoid jet lag. And then I imagine the feet into the earth from the aeroplane. So you can do it from, the mind is so powerful. You just think feet into the earth, rooted, breathing, whole body breathing, allow the heavy element to settle. Like imagine a glass of muddy water. The mud settles. What happens? The water's clear. Water's clear, then the mind is clearer. You have more inspiring ideas. If you're arguing with someone, maybe the mind becomes a bit emptier. You think this is pointless, or you get an idea. You might say something like, that's an interesting point of view to them, instead of disagreeing. People get disarmed when you say things like that. It's like,
True.
or I've never thought of it that way. You don't have to argue, just say, I've never thought of it that way. And suddenly, it diffuses. So you get ideas to diffuse. And even with my daughter, who's I love dearly, she's 22, has so much energy to argue. Now I just go into myself a bit and I just say, okay, and then nothing to argue about. But in the old days, I would argue. I'm the dad. I want to be right. I want her to respect me. Now I think she's growing up. She's pushing the boundaries. This is human nature. People have their own issues, and sometimes we don't know what's happening in their lives. So it's not good to either judge or think we know better. So I always try and create some space for myself, space between us, and then there's no judgment. But the breathing is a key, I would say, to many aspects of good health, including de-stressing at work. Every so often switch into this state of, and there's a rich history in Chinese tradition of, they often talk about pulse breathing, like the turtle or the reptiles breathe like this very deeply, and very, very pulse breathing. If you look at a lizard or a snake, they just breathe like here. No need for the whole body to, so every cell, it's very subtle. It's almost like you stop breathing, but actually you're being breathed, and it's very beneficial.
I think that kind of corroborates the fact that they say if you keep a feather at the tip of your nose, it shouldn't move. That's how subtle your breathing should be. I think because we've all lost the practice of belly breathing, which infants have. They laugh from their stomach. And as you said, we've all become shallower beings who probably we've moved it up more to the chest and the head and hardly smile. So if you can force it, how long do you think we should actually be doing that belly button breathing kind of a thing? Like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or
yeah. If it's as a formal practice, say at the end of the day, I think it's good to do it. Actually, a quick tip for those of us working in offices is definitely before going to sleep, at least an hour before sleep, switch off all electronics. A lot of people go to bed reading the news on their phone and then put the phone, wonder why they can't sleep. I mean, honestly, we need a good hour without looking at these screens, and definitely don't wake up looking at your screen. So switch off electronics, that's one issue. But I would say, 10, 15 minutes just to relax, go into a deeper state. But and then, they call it mindfulness, whatever the word is. Nowadays, mindfulness has become a science, which is great because, even though it's been in Buddhism and, Taoism and Qigong and yoga for 2000 years, it's only become a science recently through people, making it into a science. So it's good. It's coming into schools and everything. But I think in the office, or if we're out worrying, and some people aren't wearing masks and we are and we're not, just switch into this breathing at any time. Just think, okay, I'm feeling tense, I'm late, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Let me just switch into body breathing. Just notice what happens. It's like things flow more effortlessly. Life, we're too stressed, all of us, definitely, and at any point we have a choice to breathe differently. And as you say, very good point. Children breathe here, young children. So if you're doing it formally, you can put your hands here, just below the belly button, and then just breathe. Feel the movement in this area. So that's a bit more focused. And then in the office, it could just be a bit more switched to a different kind of being breathed, like I say.
Okay, okay. And the other area, actually, even I have that issue, is burning eyes. So, and once you start spending quite a number of hours in front of the screens, so, your eyes become very tired and dry. And of course, you need to switch on, switch off. So I could see that, you could do this marma and kind of do that. So what do you think should be a good thing to, exercise the eyes, especially?
Okay. So if you do this together with me for the eyes and for the head and for the brain, this whole area, because we use this too much, So rub the hands together a little bit. Rub the hands is kind of getting the energy to the hands. And, hands are very healing, but often, like I said earlier, they're a bit cut off maybe. So when we do this rubbing, it's just getting the warmth, energy to the hands. Then you clean off from the face, from the eyes. It's like clearing off any dusty feeling. Sometimes we build up this tension, or, we're focusing on a document or on something we have to do. So this is like cleaning off any dusty feeling, and the face just feels a bit more open, a bit clearer. This is one thing to start with. And then shake off from the hands. Then you're cleaning off the dusty feeling, shake it off. And then the division between the hair and the face here, often this is where we could have a lot of tension building up. So we clean this division between the hair and the face. This is very good for clearing headaches and mental fog, especially in the office, tend to be overthinking or trying to work things out. How about emptying the mind a little bit, then get the inspiration? And behind the ears, so where the hair meets the face is the yin, the yang, the division, but often the hair is too much at the front, the heaviness. So here we're cleaning this and then moving the energy front to the back, front to the back. We can look up, like breathe into the brain, breathe into the eyes, breathe out from the mouth. So we're kind of clearing the mind, clearing the head. And this is quite a quick way to kind of reset the face, the eyes. So I would say every so often, takes 2 minutes as we just did, just do this cleaning, the division, and moving the energy front to back, often too much at the front. And, if it's really the eye area, then just do a bit more kind of cleansing like this, around the eyes and the eyelids. And this is also quite a good one if anybody is going to meet somebody attractive. If you have a date, this is also a beautifying practice. You make yourself more attractive.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of blood circulation on your face, and once that's there, you feel quite
and often I hear people talking about it's like people often wear a mask. They go to work, they become a certain person, they go home, just don't need any masks. How about taking off the mask? Next mask, sometimes people have loads they're wearing. Just take them off. Don't need any. Just be who you are, as they say. The Indian mystics talk about be who you are. Just that's good.
The rest is taken. Be who you are. The rest is taken. Anyways.
Yes.
Because the real you is probably more attractive than the mask that you're trying to put. So
definitely.
Really true. So do you suggest doing any acupressure around the eyes or something? Because I also saw some.
There are points around the eyebrows. You can do some like tapping.
Okay.
Also very very good to do that. On the face. And you can look up probably the different points and different traditions, Yeah.
Sure. And one more thing that I think what I see is they suggest saltwater bath for, maintaining your energies, because once you go out there in the market, there are people with different types of energy exchanges happen. Like you sit in a bus, probably that was being sat by another guy who or person who had a lot of heavy energy issues, and then that transfers on to you. So how do you advise energy cleaning once you like some? I've heard people say take a saltwater bath or put some rock salt in your house and so on, that kind of stuff. So how do you maintain your energy levels, especially when you step out now? Of course, because COVID, that issue is not a big problem because all of us are in sweet homes. But sooner or later, we would be pushed into those scenarios again. So what's your advice to maintain one's energy level so that without being depleted, you are able to perform at your peak efficiency and productivity?
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I mean, I think, we know people, I certainly know people who drain my energy. I talk to them on the phone is enough sometimes, and then I'm exhausted.
They call them energy vampires.
Yeah, even though, look, we're all human, we're all doing our best. Often what's very interesting, I find, those kind of people, they've had a lot of trauma in their lives. So actually they need more kindness. But we need to do more for ourselves, not to say to them, look, you're an energy vampire, but to protect ourselves. And in Qigong terms, there's a lot of cleansing we can do of our energy system. I agree with you. I think, these salt baths, cleansing. Sometimes the Native Americans have sage. You burn sage to cleanse the energy in your home, or put salt in different corners. There's lots of things you can look up, for these things. But I think as humans, for our body, in Qigong terms, we definitely have a clearing our energy practices. So just for example, we did a little one here just for the head, but there's a whole body one to cleanse the energy and move the energy off the body. So often if we've been with somebody and you feel often it's like a sticky energy. So you can clean it off energetically off the body without worrying too much about it. Just clean your own energy system. And what you mentioned earlier was interesting about the Reiki and the aura. You can photograph, the human body's aura.
Kirlian photography.
I've done it like with my hand. It's very interesting. But what I noticed is when I've done it before a Qigong practice and after, and it's completely different, the energy in the body. So when we do these kind of opening and clearing the energy, then we're reorganizing our own aura. We're coming back to our own aura. And often our energy maybe is a bit depleted. Like you said, these people drain us, or we feel drained, but we can do a lot ourselves. So I would say maybe on the YouTube, there's if you share the channel, people can do.
Definitely. I'll be linking up your channel, sure.
But I think one of the main things is just clear it quite quickly if you feel, something. But obviously the main thing is the emotions and the heart, which is on our left side. And a very simple thing to do to gather your energy back and kind of partly protect, but energy that's depleted is to put the right hand over the heart side. Do you want to do that, Kieran, with me? Right hand over, on your left. Close the fingers, quite important. Close the left hand on top of the right, and then slide the right hand on top. So rather than separate them, so right hand, I'll do it standing like this. Is it better standing?
Yeah, definitely, yes. It improves the visibility.
You stay sitting is okay, but right hand on the heart, left hand on top, and gradually, carefully slide the right hand on top. So the two hands contained, one on top of the other, fingers closed. This is actually calling back any energy that's leaked off the body or leaking, and bringing our energy back to the center. So I think this is very effective. Only 2-3 minutes to do this, but you feel the heart area quite warm. The heart is the ruler of the emotions, really. And in England, we have a lovely expression. When you worry about people or something like that, you say, my heart goes out to them, But you don't want your heart to go too far. But the more contained your energy is, the more you take care of yourself, the more you can take care of others. So it doesn't mean it's selfish. It's like by being having your energy gathered and centered, you can do more for others. So I think at the moment, this is the biggest lesson with COVID is take care of ourselves as much as we can, then take care of others as much as we can. But a lot of people trying to, do both. And it's difficult because then we get depleted. They, don't get the best care. So we all have more responsibility for ourselves and for others right now. I think that's the big COVID lesson, is to be more responsible, take more care of our own health, and reach out to others as much as we can, because we are centered and, we are in balance ourselves. So here you feel warm, spacious around the heart, and then you can just put the hands together, come down. So, but I think one of the main things is not to worry too much about these things, even like when you say a word like energy vampire, words are very,
there's a negative connotation to it, true.
Yeah, and words are powerful. So actually, I think, the more I see people, the more I realize that people who have the most, are the most difficult or aggressive or this or that, actually they have had the most trauma probably. So they need the most understanding. And like the Dalai Lama says, it's easy to, love your friends, but our biggest lesson is love your enemies, realize that that's our big lesson in life, is to kind of, come together as a society, community, and do whatever we can to bring peace and kindness into the world more.
Actually, as you said, in office, we do encounter sometimes difficult people, and people do say that he's cruel, wicked, and all that. As opposed to that, as you said, we could use different sort of words to them because we don't know what their journey has been, what their experiences have been. So I did talk to a meditation teacher. So he used to say, it's like you look at all of them like God's children. Some of them are naughty, some of them are well behaved. That's the way to look at them. That's it. That kind of eases your own way at how you look at people that you don't know what their real journey has been and why they respond in the way they do respond. But all of us are made in the image of God, and we are all love beings, energy beings. So it's all exchange of energy. Some high, some low, some in between.
And especially in the corporate world, and men, women, power, all these things play out in the corporate world. And I think there's a lot of like mental illness hiding in the corporate world. People for sure, who use power over others, and it's just, we have to, if our energy is well contained, if we are well practiced, it doesn't affect us in the same way. We can actually recognize that person for who they are and what they are, and actually they pick it up as well energetically, that we're not scared, we're not judging, and then they can change. I mean, I love Wayne Dyer. Do you know Wayne Dyer? Yeah. One of my favorite expressions is, when you change the way you look at the world you look at changes. And Wayne Dyer, I don't know if you know how he started his spiritual journey. He was not successful at all. He wanted to write books, wanted to go on TV, and he actually had no success. His father had abandoned him and his mother. He was a drunkard, and he died, so he went to his father's grave.
Yeah, I think he was in search of his dad. He booked a place in the, was it Brian Weiss or Wayne Dyer? I don't know, one of them. So he went to that place, and he happened to book a hotel right opposite to the mortuary where his dad was buried. And he discovered his dad's past and all that sort of stuff. So it was Wayne Dyer, is it?
Yeah, well, he went there actually.
Okay, please go.
It's not that rude, but he went to urinate on his father's grave. Okay.
Oh, okay.
He was so angry. Okay. And when he got there in the grave of this man who had abandoned them and abused them, something happened, and he forgave his father at that moment. He forgave his father. Next day, he got an offer to go on TV. He got a book deal that week. Everything, his life turned around 360 when he forgave but he didn't go to forgive his father. And I think with other people, you know, when people actually, often they say, forgive them for yourself, you know, for your peace of mind. You know, what if somebody is an aggressive director in the office and treats everyone like, you know, what if everyone forgave them like immediately? You know, that person could not be, you know, as they were, you know, honestly. I just think it's an energy. Forgiveness is also an energy. So it's not to resist. What we resist persists, doesn't it? So it's like internally forgive, you know, and see what happens. Just see what happens. And it's not easy. God, it's not an easy thing. I mean, he didn't go to do that, to forgive. It just happened.
He was blocking his own energies. Like they say, the best thing to do is get out of your own self for your own good.
That's a good way to put it. Get out of your own way. And I know with my Qigong, when I practice or I do one-to-one with people, you know, online or with groups, when I get out of the way, somehow the energy, you know, it's just there. It guides me. When I'm there, I'm this, I'm that, you know, it doesn't work as well.
So I think just to add to your thing about the office stress and strain, they say poison is like, anger is like poison. You drink it and expect the other person to die. So poison is like, what poison can do to, what anger can do to a person is like, you know, you consume it, but you're expecting the other person to die. So it's quite harmful for all of us.
And that might be similar. I don't know if it's an Indian expression, but I heard that as well. Like if somebody shoots you with a poison arrow, don't try and find the person. Deal with the wound. You know, take out the poison arrow. That's the thing to do. And so when we do, it's, you know, it's a healing process. And at the moment, I think the COVID, there's so many lessons in it, positive lessons. Of course, it's a terrible tragedy all over the world, but there's a lot of very positive, interesting things coming out of it. Like people are becoming, it feels like, more caring. It's bringing out, you know, problems in society, inequalities. It's bringing out racism. It's bringing out, you know, national health, what's right, what's wrong. It's bringing out the politicians for who they are. I think there's a lot more, I don't want to say more good than bad, but there's a lot of positives, and we need to look at those and build on those rather than, you know, a lot of people just saying, when will this be over? When can I get back to my Ferrari and drive it round? And this, no, you know, this is like some shift now. It's a big shift.
Yeah. I think it's a wake-up call from nature to say that you don't mess around too much. Otherwise, there'll be nothing left. And with all the comforts that you have, you can't do anything more than probably sit in a place and we do that. So that's one thing. And the other one was, what's a quick daily practice that you would suggest, Alessandro? I think before we, you know, call it, we end this talk. So what do you think? I know there are a lot of extensive videos that you put in your channel, which I'll be linking for sure. But what do you think should be a daily practice that you could quickly walk us through? And of course, the extended ones, we'll definitely watch your channel for that. And then if people want to get on one-on-one with you, I will leave your mail and contacts as well.